Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Hi, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. If you can see me and hear me properly, just put a hi in the chat box. Okay, great. Thanks, and for validating that you can see and hear me properly. Very quickly introducing you all and welcoming you all to Insights with upGrad, the series of webinars that we do with amazing experts in different fields of data, technology, product, and management areas who come up with really interesting topics for you to be able to crack your careers in a much better way. And today we have Apurve Gupta, who is here to help us explain and demystify the career roadmap for a product manager. And I hope it'll be really interesting for you to gain insights into what his journey has been over the last 10 years. Very quickly taking you through the rules for any issues that you face with audio or video while Apurv is presenting, just type it in the chat box and we'll look at it. And if you have any questions you'd like Apurv to take, just put it in the Q&A box. Those are just the two rules that we have for this session. I'm launching a poll for me to understand how many of you today are expecting a certain outcome from this session and what years of experience you have, so that it helps us personalize the experience more for you. I would really request all of you to quickly press the 2 to 3 keys that you're required for this vote. I hope you're able to see the live results, Apurv.
Yes, I can.
Great. So a very heavy outcome orientation for can I build my career in product management so far. Okay, 50% of you have voted. Still waiting for the remaining people to start voting in. Quite a balanced mix of audience with all, I think, almost equivalent number of people under 6 years and above 6. So it's going to be across the range of the career roadmap that you have, Apurv. And great. Let's begin. I think we've got about 70% votes, just giving you a good idea to begin with. Over to you, Apurv.
Cool. Thanks, Medha. I'll do a very quick introduction for myself. So I'm Apurve. I'm a senior product manager at Indeed currently in their Singapore office. And I've done product management for about 10 plus years now. I will share my screen. And if you face any issues in seeing this, let me know. Oops. Right. So if there are no issues, we can probably begin.
Sure.
So, right. So today we talk about career roadmap for a product manager. I already told you about myself. Let's start with the basics. Let's demystify product management a bit. So I don't know how many of you have seen this. This is a popular meme in the PM world. Yeah, like I'm sure our moms think we're all Steve Jobs, and in our heads we're all Superman. But actually, most of us are like headless chickens running around trying to make sense of things. But if you really want to understand what PMs do, everybody has a different definition for it. And this definition has been changing over the years. I know there are some stereotypical things that you have heard, but some of them were coined 20, 25 years ago, and they might not be completely true in today's world. It also differs based on the size and resources of your organization. So if you are part of a startup, you're probably doing a whole lot more than somebody who's working at a Fortune 500 company or a Fortune 100 company. Let's look at some famous definitions. So I'm sure everyone has heard of this. A good product manager is the CEO of the product. There are views on the entire spectrum around whether this definition is right or wrong. But when it was coined in 1996 by Ben Horowitz, I think it was pretty accurate. They were trying to set this up as a position that can take care of a bit of everything around the product. So in a way, you became like a mini CEO. Marty Kagan, very, very famous author of the book Inspired. I would like all product managers or aspiring product managers to read this book. But basically what he says is, first and foremost, your job is to discover a product that is valuable, useful, and feasible. So he talks a lot about product discovery. So what is useful for consumers, what's valuable for them, and what your engineering team can build. Then Martin Erickson, 2011, in Mind the Product, he said, you are at the intersection of UX, tech, and business. So product managers are equal parts design collaborators, engineering collaborators, and business collaborators. So, right, this is my view of what a PM does. I think you should start with the why. So this is your primary responsibility. You must identify what are the user needs. You must set objectives for your product. And then you should help define the what. So this is setting a product vision, prioritizing features, and then finally stakeholder management. Once you have these objectives and vision in place, can you build a consensus on it? Can you get buy-in? And when your team is executing on it, can you unblock them to actually get to the outcome as soon as possible? So this is like a very brief description of what a PM responsibilities look like. Before I move forward, any questions so far? Cool. So let's look at the agile team organization. Why I want to talk through this is so that you can understand how agile product teams are organized, like how the organizations structure the different teams, and so that you can understand how different levels of product managers deal with different complexities of the organization. In this, we'll talk about tribes and squads. So the images are very, very misleading, but I think whoever came up with the name had some logic in their head when they named this. But essentially, this is like the tribes and squads model that Spotify follows, and this is very famous. So if you try to understand this diagram on its own, it can be quite tricky. But I can help break it down for you to understand it better. So if this is the entire organization, this is a squad. So a squad is similar to a Scrum team. It is designed to feel like a mini startup. And essentially this team sits together and they have all the skills and tools needed to build a product. So they're not really dependent on too many people to develop, test, and release stuff to production. So assume at Spotify, there is a music player, and there is a small section of the music player which is just for the controls. So if there's a team that works on those controls, it's a squad. So it might probably have a PM, a UX designer, a couple of backend, couple of front-end engineers, and let's say a technical delivery manager. So those are some of the people that a squad would have. And a PM is generally responsible for leading that team. Now, what is a tribe? Tribe is a collection of these squads. So let's say this music player that I talked about has people that work on controls, that work on the now playing section, that work on the playlist. All of these squads put together make up a tribe. The next thing is a chapter. So chapter is a small family of people having similar skills. So what I mean by that is within a tribe, if there are, let's say, UX designers, so every squad would have a UX designer. The group of all UX designers in this tribe would make up a chapter of UX designers. Finally, a guild. So this is more organic. You could actually have a guild of all UX designers at Spotify, plus other folks who are interested in this. So let's say you are interested in accessibility design, or you are interested in design-led research, etc. Then you can be part of that guild, and multiple such guilds can exist at the company. So now we move on to PM career paths. As a product manager, you obviously have to manage a few things. You have to manage stakeholders, you have to manage your product, but your career paths depend on, do you actually like people management or not? If you had to manage product managers directly, then a question your manager would ask you is, do you like people management? And obviously you will ask me, do I have a choice? So fortunately, yes, you do. So product managers can either grow as an individual contributor, or they can grow as people managers. The tricky bit is that not all companies may have both kind of opportunities. Usually the bigger companies do offer both kinds of roles. Let's look at the IC track, or the individual contributor track. So all product managers start as individual contributors. This option to choose a track to continue to be an individual contributor usually comes up when you're already a senior product manager. And you should pursue this if you want to be the subject matter expert in your field. So let's say you are a product manager of data science, and you're working on very cool algorithms to fine-tune the news feed of, let's say, Facebook, and you want to continue building more and more advanced these algorithms, and you don't want to sort of get into managing people who do this for you. So that's a point at which you would probably decide to choose an IC track. I would say this works best if you want to have more direct impact on the product. So you're less inclined to actually guide people on how to do their job. You're more inclined to actually make the product better. And I think that's for that kind of inclination, the IC track works best. The people manager track is a more conventional product manager growth path. As I said, all product managers do manage things. You manage stakeholders, you manage your product, you manage blocks, or you unblock your team in different ways. But once you start managing other PMs, you are on the people manager track. And similar to the IC track, the first opportunity comes up usually when you are senior PM somewhere, and your manager starts to trust you to manage a few other PMs, or mentor a few other PMs or junior PMs. I think you should pursue this if at some point of time you want to be CPO or CEO, or if you want to have your own company, because in those positions, having people management skills is paramount. Okay, before I dive into PM titles and levels, I see some Q&A. I think we can take these at the end. Right. So PM titles and levels. I know this is why we are all here today. The stuff that I talked about was just to set up the concepts that will help you understand these titles and levels. So what's in a title? So that which we call a PM by any other name would just be as important to an org. So this is definitely not a quote by Shakespeare, but I just twisted the one which he had. But this is, without further ado, this is the level, PM levels that I wanted to talk about. So the first position that most product managers usually start off is an associate product manager. This is also known as a junior product manager in places. In a lot of companies, you also start off as a product analyst or a business analyst, but you're truly a product manager when you start as an APM. Then you have the product manager, which is probably the widest band that exists. There can be very, very beginner level product managers, and there can be very, very seasoned product managers without a change in title. Senior product managers are usually more experienced. They have had a couple of stints under their belt, and maybe at least 5 to 10 years of experience. Then from a senior product manager, as I said, you could have two paths. So if you choose the IC path, you become a principal product manager. And this is very similar to software engineering. For all the people in the engineering domain here, this is very similar to software engineering. You become a principal product manager. And very, very rarely do people even grow from here and go on to be a distinguished product manager. So this is, again, a very new concept. If a principal product manager really is the subject matter expert in their field and sort of in their world, then you can go on to be a distinguished product manager. If you take the people management path, then at this point, you either become a lead product manager or group product manager. Different companies have different nomenclatures. From there, you go to director of product or head of product. From there, usually senior director of product or VP of product, and then CPO or SVP of product. So this is like what you usually have at companies. There are variations in this, but this is the most common career path that product managers have. So as I said, these titles and even transitions vary at different organizations. Some of the levels don't exist. In some cases, there are more levels which exist in between. Example is Facebook. They have very, very wide bands. So a product manager can map from a PM to a director at other orgs. So like imagine PM, SPM, GPM, director, all covered by a PM at Facebook. So you can never tell how senior they are. It's a very wide band. Then some organizations are known to give out very fancy titles. So like AVP product or VP product, but this is more similar to investment banking. So like for example, AVP product or VP product might actually map to senior PMs at other companies. So I think it is wise to understand the hierarchy or what we call levels at an organization when you're evaluating a position. Like sometimes people get swayed by the fact that you're being offered a very fancy title, or sometimes they're discouraged that, oh, the title doesn't sound so fancy. But depending upon the organization, the remuneration or the authority or the level of organization that you are at might actually differ. So this is an example of how levels at different companies can be. So if you look at LinkedIn, a very standard path that I talked about, APM, PM, SPM, principal PM or group PM, director, senior director. Then Facebook, on the other hand, as I said, their APM position is a rotational PM, because these guys, they move around from one product to another, learning about all products to some extent, so that they can choose where they want to go. But then they have a very wide product manager band, which can be a L4, L5, L6, L7, and then they have director and senior director. Amazon has a PM, SPM, again, principal PM, director, VP. Google, on the other hand, has many more bands. So they split their APM into 1 and 2. They split their PM into 1, 2, 3. Then they have SPM, group PM, director, senior director, and VP. Let's understand what's the differences in responsibilities of each of these roles. So I'm sure it's not black and white. There is definite overlap between these roles, but broadly, if we would try to group together what are the responsibilities, this is how it would look. So at a APM level, if you talk about people management and leadership, you're trying to earn the trust of your engineering team. So I think that should be one of the primary things you do. There is very little expectation to manage or lead anybody, but just earn the trust of your team. PMs, on the other hand, start to manage a squad, and you need to learn how to influence without authority. I think during all of these product management webinars, you will hear a lot about this, influencing without authority. And this is important because the engineers, designers, even data scientists, these people, they don't report to you. So you need to influence them. And I'm sure the process started when you were earning the trust of the team. Then as an SPM or a GPM, you're expected to lead a squad or manage multiple squads. So your job at this stage is to provide thought leadership. And what that means is, the PMs are sufficiently capable of running their own squads, but can you actually guide them in the right direction? Can you give them ideas on how to do things better? Can you make them better PMs? At a director level, you're expected to lead a tribe. So you lead teams, you develop talent, you coach people. And VPs, they are actually leading multiple tribes. So you enable the product to work seamlessly across functions. What that means is, let's say as the product org, you're trying to drive something, but it requires the support of, let's say, marketing, or let's say it requires the support of sales, or the other way around, then VPs enable that. From a product and strategy development perspective, APMs, they start feature prioritization with PM guidance. What that means is you're not probably given complete carte blanche on what products to build, but for a product, let's say if you were to prioritize what features to build, then you can start to learn different prioritization frameworks. For a PM, feature development is an expectation. So you must know how to prioritize and execute these features. At SPM, GPM level, you create the end-to-end vision and product roadmap. So it's a big product strategy that you're building. Essentially, this is what helps guide feature development and feature prioritization down the road. Similarly, directors are crafting portfolio strategy. This is even one more level abstract. And then VPs are crafting cross-functional strategy. So they are ensuring that strategies across different parts of the org are not clashing, and they are sort of all aligned with the company vision. From an analytics perspective, APMs are supposed to be data informed. So when I ask an APM, would you actually release this feature or not? It should not be gut based. It should be based on, okay, the following metric behaved this way, hence I feel this is what we should do. At a PM level, you should start doing some data analysis. So if given a bunch of data, you should be able to derive valuable insights from it. Like, looking at, let's say, unsubscribe numbers, you must try and understand what drove people to unsubscribe to certain emails. Then at SPM, GPM levels, it goes one level higher. It is product analytics. So you try to ensure that data capturing, data monitoring, product performance, those are things that are looked into in your squad. So that's for SPMs and GPMs. At a director level, you must foster a culture of analytics in the tribe. So if you are a director who is trying to enforce your own views on the tribe, then you're not doing a good job of it. Basically, everybody in the tribe should be data driven, and that culture of analytics should exist, and that's the job. VPs do this at an even higher level. So I think VP product especially must ensure that data is being used across the organization. Data-driven insights are actually driving decisions in other parts of the organization as well. Then business and growth. APMs are supposed to be business informed. I think this is a very good opportunity to learn about the market. You start to develop a gut feel for, what business outcomes will actually drive the product in what direction. At a PM level, you start doing a lot of research and experimentation. So you must do user research, you must assist user researchers, and with experimentation like A/B testing, etc., you must validate user needs. At SPM and GPM level, you're responsible for product growth. So suddenly it's not just execution, it's also how do you scale up stuff. So whether it is acquisition of users, whether it is adoption of the product, whether it is retention of users, whether it is increasing revenues or increasing referrals, you're responsible for your product's growth. At a director level, you enable business partnerships. What that means is, whether working with internal or external teams, can you grow the business further? Can you help in unlocking significant business value? At a VP level, you do this at an even higher level. You're part of the board, you're trying to influence the board, you're trying to probably work with VPs or CPOs at other companies to have significant collaborations. So this is how the roles grow. So finally, looking at accelerators. So how do you actually climb the ladder? What are the skills that will help you grow as a product manager? So first is, you must develop certain skills. So the first bucket is strategic thinking. There are a bunch of things that I cover under this. So you must get better at brainstorming, doing structured thinking, in driving strategy. Eventually, you become the go-to expert. Then communication, your email writing skill. How do you communicate with people? How do you create and deliver presentations? That's important. Then collaboration. You must be an active participant in meetings. You must lead processes. You must lead meetings, and you must look to solve problems and anticipate what conflicts can arise, and then try to diffuse the situations. Then user science. So this is more around, can you run a survey? Can you do a research? Can you do prototyping? Can you do A/B testing? So those are skills that will help you collaborate with your UX teams, with your research teams better, and sort of interpreting research results or A/B testing results. Finally, analytics. So you must get good at writing queries, doing Google Analytics, and deriving insights from data, reporting, monitoring, etc. Next important bucket is delivering results. So you might be super skilled, but if you don't deliver results, then it's hard to make a case to move up the ladder. So you must deliver results. One, your product quality must be great. So are you delivering bug-free, great user experience products that solve user pains and create some gains for them? Then you've done your job well. Two is product delivery. So are you delivering your products fast and in a timely manner? Last, you should have measurable impact. So it might be a great product, but if it doesn't lead to a positive outcome, then I don't think that the case for your moving up the ladder is that strong. Lastly, I think you should take actions. So the moment you start to grow in your career, you should start mentoring others. So whether it is your team members or other product managers. Secondly, you should manage and grow teams. So this is slightly controversial. It might appear that it has to do with artificially inflating your scope, but that's not it. I think how you should look at it is, if you create higher impact, you can increase the scope of your product, and that would lead to bigger teams, and that's a win. Next is improving visibility. So I think as the organization grows bigger, it needs people who can clearly and articulately explain what is happening with the product, what are the updates, and therefore these timely and impactful updates will get you noticed. So improve your visibility by that. And lastly, I would recommend be a T-shaped product manager. So I think this is something that is often used in the consultancy space, but I would suggest first develop broad, transferable product management skills so that you're good at all of the skills that I talked about. And you can collaborate with cross-functional teams, and then you start going deep into specific skills. So let's say if you are particularly interested in data science, or if you're particularly interested in growth product management, or if you're particularly interested in some analytics product management, then you start to go deep into that. But first develop broad transferable skills, because that will make you useful in a lot of places and will help you grow. Yeah, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Apurve. It was really very, very beautifully explained. And I hope all the people listening here today, if some of them were from the IT sector, already developers, they would have got an idea that there are roles like IC, independent contributors, which I did not know existed. They now do know that it does exist. We are looking at a few questions, but before that, I'll just summarize very quickly about what we as upGrad do. upGrad is an online higher education provider, and we provide education, a very nice, a high quality education at very affordable rates to working professionals across the globe. We're now present in 85 plus countries. So anybody opting for our programs stands the chance to learn and network with people while sitting at the comfort of their houses. What we have seen people express usually is that, oh wait, how can I actually do structured learning while working in my job, which is a full-time job, which is why we have the concept of upGrad Buddy, who helps you out with all the planning that goes into segregating learning while you're working. We also have a very strong personalized coaching and live learning experience. Experts like Apurve come and give you amazing insights into the industry. Apurve, right, like today, he presented what is it that goes into Facebook and other companies. How is the hierarchy? That is something which is not very easily available, or is not a part of conceptual learning that we have always been a part of. So insights like this are enabled because we partner with great experts from across the globe. And small group coaching is carried out in groups of 8 to 12 people, depending on where you're situated, so that you can learn more from your peers as well. So all of this is what makes upGrad stand apart, and you have the possibility to choose programs from certifications, executive programs, or masters in data, machine learning, software development, management, product management, and also stand a chance to do it from amazing universities. So that was it from my side about upGrad, and I will open the floor to Q&A. I will just pick up a few questions. We have about 8 of them here, and I'll just start with the first one. What is your suggestion for a data scientist who wants to transition to a product manager role?
Cool. So good question. I think this is very common. It's like a lot of data scientists these days are transitioning to product manager roles. I would say look for specific roles that require data science skills, as I talked about one example as well, right? Companies like Facebook, for example, one of the key challenges that they're solving for is how do they ensure that the news feed or the feed that you see on Facebook is relevant for you? It is free from fake news, and they can check for bad actors, etc. And it requires a lot of data science behind it. Similarly, let's say e-commerce. You have roles where you have products displayed. Now, there are recommendations that you can give to users. There are pairing suggestions that you can give to users. You can suggest them, if you purchase this, there are other things that you can look at, similar to what Amazon does, for example. So those are very data science heavy roles, and I would suggest you start looking out for those. So you are already, uh, you know, heavily skilled in terms of data science. I would suggest, work with courses like upGrad and pick up skills that you miss, and start applying for those roles. That might be the best fit.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next question. In the software industry, how would you differentiate application, service, product, platform? I think each company would have its own definition, if we were to go like that. But is there something which is an over-encompassing definition?
Yeah, I don't think there's like a definition. In my head, I would see an application as something, which is like a software product that runs on its own. So it's like a web application or a mobile application. It provides you certain services that you can make use of. The service, on the other hand, is more like a backend thing. So we usually refer to service as APIs or backend services that actually enable certain functionalities on an application. A product can be an application, may not be an application. Like a product is a product. You can have a hardware product, you can have a software product, you can have a SaaS product. So there are different products that exist. Platform, on the other hand, is usually a product which allows other people to integrate into it. So Slack, for example, allows other apps to come in and provide you different services. That may be a platform. So platform is usually a product which, or like Shopify, for example, it exists, like a product which enables e-commerce, or like brick and mortar people to go online, or just have your dedicated online store. But it also allows different vendors to have different functionalities as plug and play. So hence, that's a platform.
Great. And I think the definition would also vary between, because software industry is largely divided into product and service based. So those are the two differentiators. Let's move to a question from Sayan. Can you give a percentage of involvement or knowledge a product manager needs to have about technology versus business?
Cool. That's a very good question. And I think this depends on what kind of a product manager role you are in. So there are technical product manager roles and there are product manager roles. So typically, the roles that talk about technical product management, right? And Microsoft has a lot of these, Amazon has a lot of these. Very heavy software companies have a lot of technical product manager roles. There, it's probably maybe 70-30, 70 technology, 30 business user know-how, right? Because you need to be really strong with your technology, because all of the stakeholders you're working with are highly technical. And if you don't understand the language that they speak, then you will not be able to help them out. Whereas if you are, in the regular product manager role, which does not call out a technical know-how need specifically, then I think it's probably the other way around. So your 70% know-how should be in business and users, about your business and users, and 30% about technology. The technology part cannot be lower than this, because again, then you will not be able to collaborate with your engineers. You will not be able to come up with optimum solutions. But it's not to say that you cannot start with a non-technical background. I think those are skills that can definitely be picked up. So even if you start from some sort of a quant background, it's possible to pick up those skills.
I think the next question is just talking about the skills which are required to become an APM. The person is saying that it's companies ask you to have a working knowledge of Python or SQL. So is there something that a PM should know or an APM should know?
I don't think that an APM needs to know Python or DBMS. SQL, yes, because I think as an APM, it would be beneficial if you can get in and start querying for data. That's one of the key things that a senior PM or a PM would ask you to help them out. Like they are looking for certain data and they probably don't have the time to dig into that data. And if you have good SQL skills, you can be very handy and be immediately useful to the team. So SQL skills, yes. Now, other than that, I think I mentioned in my slides some of the other skills that you need to know, need to have rather. You need to have certain influential skills so that you can earn the trust of your team. You need to have certain basic analytical skills. You should be able to make business informed decisions. Can you actually look at the market and understand, okay, if this thing goes up, this thing comes down? That much understanding you must have. Yeah, but other than that, I don't think you need to know too many tech skills. It's more about being smart, being savvy, being good with people. Yeah.
Perfect. And to the previous question, I think you answered as technical versus, normal product manager. I think each company also has different types of PMs. Like there are different ways in which they segregate their work internally. Some of them look at core products, some of them are user facing, some of them are how do I improve a few metrics, just focused on improving a few metrics. So that requires you to have both, I mean 50-50 on both. So just depending on what you're looking at internally, even within every organization, the your interaction with business team or understanding of the user goes up and down. Cool. Sayan, you're on fire today. How do you keep yourself motivated as a PM when your product goes from MVP to growth phase and then to stagnant or decline phase? Do you keep innovating the product or just shift to another product?
Yeah, I think that's again a good question. So I think getting to MVP is super exciting, but super nerve wracking. So most PMs enjoy that. MVP to growth phase, this is the cruising phase, right? So this is when you have hit the right levels and you're growing the product and you're getting a lot of accolades. So this is when you start to grow in the company. So if you're getting your product from MVP to growth phase, then you've done a good job. So it's possible that you start to think about at that point, how do you prevent the product from going into the stagnant or the decline phase? Is it possible to make a few integrations with different companies? Is it possible to get into an adjacent space? Is it possible to start tackling another set of users? So that I think is part of your strategy. But let's say despite everything, if the product gets into the stagnant or the decline phase, as a product manager, you also have the responsibility to pull the trigger on the product. So it's like to sunset a product. That's a very valuable thing to do. So you cannot have dead weight building up at the company. If you want to be fast and agile, you need to keep killing products at the same pace as you're building products. So that's what I would suggest. Me personally, I enjoy all of those phases. If it starts to get boring for me, or if let's say there's an opportunity at the company where I can be of greater help, then I can actually switch over to another product as well, which is usually the case. So product managers are quite multidimensional, and sometimes their learnings from one product can be applicable to a different product, or just like it's a rotational opportunity. Maybe what is stagnant to you might actually have some more growth opportunity for somebody else. So yeah, that's how I see it.
And then last bit you said was really valuable. The fact that you have to sunset products as fast as you come up with the newer ones, that's just, being agile. And it does hurt having been through this whole phase myself very recently. I do know that it is so upsetting to know that something which you like spend the last 2 months building is now just getting out of the product line. But yeah, you definitely are moving towards a better solution. So yeah. Nishant is asking, could I transition into a PM role in the automotive industry after an MBA and PG in product management with 5 years of experience in R&D, with product management being a small to medium part of my job?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any reason why not. If you have some qualification in product management and you have some experience in product management, then definitely you can get into that space. I think it depends on what the companies are looking for. So, like, at present, a lot of the companies are looking to hire product managers in the EV space. So the electronic mobility space is hot right now. So whether it's Tesla or Volkswagen or Toyota or some new upstart companies, they are all looking to hire product managers. The skill set required is certainly different. So in terms of the technical knowledge, it is usually less to do with software. It is more to do with hardware. Do you have a good understanding of sensors and actuators and sort of how you can use that data to actually build a better automotive product? If you have some background there, if you have some basic knowledge there, then I don't see any reason why you cannot.
Perfect. Or another solution is to just see if you want to do a certification at this point in time, just to hone your skills better. Because I mean, the one with upGrad has a lot of live projects. If you think that product management has been, very small or negligible part of what you know, you can look up certifications like these to have hands-on projects that you can work on. Sayan is asking, okay, Sayan, I'm going to take somebody else's question first just to give everybody equal chance. There's one anonymous question on how do you recommend a PM hone his storytelling skills?
Storytelling, very, very important. Like, without naming the person, somebody very, very senior I worked with often told me, I'm going to keep asking for you, keep asking for a story from you until you give it to me. So basically, storytelling skills are super, super valuable, no matter how senior you get at an organization, because I think it's been proven that unless you tell something like a story, it doesn't stick. So for your narrative to stick, for your narrative to make sense, for you to get buy-in or to have consensus, you need to be good at telling a story. Similarly, if you're setting a product vision, if you are giving your team like a goal to build something towards, then having good storytelling skills are very important.
Perfect. Agree with you completely. Okay. Onik is asking, I'm a functional consultant. How can I shift to an APM? What specific skill sets should I build?
So I'm not too sure what is a functional consultant. Would you know, Medha?
I think what he means to say is he is a consultant right now.
Like a business consultant?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for business consultants, moving to APM position is very, very easy. In fact, a lot of the companies have a slight bit of bias towards business analysts, business consultants specifically. That's because they have worked on strategy, and strategy is a major part of product management as well. So I think they are also data driven. Product managers are also data driven. So make a CV or a resume which highlights some of those projects that you have done, where you can talk about how you used data in your decision making, how you helped build the strategy for a product, how you helped achieve good outcomes, and I think you will make a very good case for an APM.
Great. How would you roughly categorize APM, PM based on years of experience? Okay. So essentially the hierarchy that you showed is there, 0 to 2, 2 to 4.
Yeah, I would say APMs usually are people uh, with maybe 0 to 2 years of experience. So you could be working as like a product analyst, business analyst, or a QA, or a UX, or a data scientist, or you may be an entrepreneur who tried his or her hand at business. And I think if you After that experience, if you try and apply for an APM, like usually I've seen people with 0 to 3 years of experience getting into APM positions. Sometimes if you get into an APM position after an MBA, then sometimes your pre-MBA work experience gets ignored as well, because if it possibly might be completely irrelevant. But for PMs, the band is very, very wide. So anywhere from 3 to 10 years of experience, you could be a PM. For SPM, usually it used to be 10 plus years. Now I have seen that a few companies are getting very, very liberal with their titles. So even at 5 plus years, people have started to get SPM positions. Group product manager, lead product manager, again, if it's a great company, if they are hiring very skilled product managers, then group product managers or lead product managers are usually 12 plus. And directors are usually 15 plus. So I think beyond that is just,
Yeah, I think it depends on the company you're in. So just it'll vary a lot between a startup and a well-established firm. So yeah, I think that was already covered by you in the presentation. Vishal is asking, how can we improve the skill to crack guesstimate questions? Just use some common books like Case Interviews Cracked. Go through the guesstimates there, and you'll be good to go. There's one question between, is there any overlap between product and project managers? So to my understanding, project managers are on the IT side, IT companies, right?
yeah. So I think in terms of skills, project managers are great at backlog management. So ensuring delivery of product. So product delivery happening fast and timely, and sort of making sure all of the requirements are met and user acceptance, etc. So those are definitely part of a product manager's job. But there are more skills which are required, and I listed those.
Perfect. How do you suggest doing an MSc or an MBA would be better to get into a PM domain? I think it's either or, right?
It's either or, and at this point, I would even say do the upGrad course. That might be better, because like there is no mandatory requirement for you to have a master's. I think what works better is if you've actually done that sort of critical thinking, if you have the quantitative skills, if you can understand the business requirements, if you can speak to the engineers. So I think all of those skills are more important. And if doing this product management course is giving you all of those skills, and maybe if you can then score an internship, it might be a better path as compared to doing a master's, which is more expensive, takes more time, and I'm not sure if it can get you the ROI you're looking for.
Got it. So Sayan, yes, coming to your question, what's the biggest challenge that you faced when you started as a PM, and how did you overcome it or come up with a solution?
So biggest challenge, I think when I started off as a PM, it was a very nascent profession in India. There were not enough trainings or courses available for how to be a good PM. There were not enough resources. There was not even a big enough community to learn from. I also had to start at a fast growing startup and hit the ground running. So on my first day, I still remember I just could not understand any of the terms being thrown around. So it was things like, can you work on the PRD? Can you write the following SQL query? Can you do the UAT for this? And I'm like just scratching my head as to, what these terms are. How do you work with these teams? Because I came from a entrepreneur background. I had a business of my own, and I was just focused on getting things done. I probably never paid attention to what terms to use, how the teams are organized, who do you work with, how do you work with people, what are agile terminologies, etc. So I think those were some of the trickiest things to grasp. The benefit of being an entrepreneur was I understood the connection with business really well. I was good with people. I could make presentations, and I was reasonably data driven.
Great. Thank you for that, Apur. One last question, maybe. I think it's a callback to the previous question, difference between product manager and project manager. So is there any step-by-step level to transition from project to product manager?
I don't think there's a step-by-step approach. And this has to do with the fact that product management, for product management, you need to be ready to deal with a lot of ambiguity. And the whole profession itself is quite ambiguous to some extent. So every company has different requirements of a product manager. In my head, I would say, there are some skills as a project manager that can be useful as a product manager. Work hard on getting the remainder of the skills. Like one of the common ways that I've seen is try and work on a project with your product managers in your company. If you can get that opportunity, grab it. Sometimes senior leaders will make that happen for you. If you express the interest that you want to be a product manager, they will allow you to work with product managers as an apprentice or as an APM or something. And if you can do a good job, if you can learn on the job, then you might actually just crack your PM interview.
Great, thank you. I think one question on quite a lot of online programs. How do you decide between those? Do you have any recommendation here? One recommendation from my side would be see if that course is giving you ample amount of live projects to work with, because things like product management or data or machine learning, all of these are things where you have to have a hands-on experience and not just learn in theory. So see if that is being offered. Second, see if the course is designed to help you achieve an outcome. Is it designed in a way to help you transition into the career? Is it designed in a way to help you understand the basics, like build your foundations really well, and then move on to more complex things? Because without building the foundations, you cannot do the high level data or product management tasks.
I would also have a couple of more recommendations. I think from a product manager's perspective, and the way I would look at it is try and look at some data. If the course is really good and as good as the teachers are saying it is, then and they would also publish some statistics around it. So one thing to look at is what's the completion rate. People who join the course, are they actually completing the course? That's good to understand. Second, can you look at where the alumni are currently placed? So people who did this course, did they actually end up in good product management positions at good companies? Then both of them are indicators that the course is doing the people some good. I think that's how I would choose one.
Great. Thanks for bringing the completion rate point. We are at 87% program completion rate currently, which is, a great industry standard.
And to benchmark that, if you look at typical MOOCs, right, the completion rate is like 3% or something. So I think 87 is phenomenal.
Great. Shaija is asking if you can share the recording. Yeah, sure. It'll be shared on your email. There's one question on, is it mandatory to have masters for a better career growth? I think we answered that. It's not mandatory. Can I apply for the product management certificate program? I've completed my BBA in logistics and supply chain. Oh, absolutely. And will it be useful? Absolutely depends on if you want to get into this field. If you want to, it'll be useful. If not, you can decide if you want to pursue it or not. You can write to us at admissions@upgrad.com, or block some time on the calendar link that I shared on the chat. Great. I think that's all the questions we had today. Thank you so much, Apurve, for so patiently answering each one of them. I think So you are lead by example, because you have very beautifully divided the time between speaking for the session and taking up the Q&A. So on point, on time.
Thank you, Medha.
Great. I will just launch a very quick poll to understand from all of you if this was helpful. Are there areas that you want us to, work on? And that'll be really helpful feedback. I have shared a feedback link on the chat options for you to look at, and that's how we improve. And this, if you were to call this a product, that's how we improve into making things better for you. Great. Can we see the, okay. Wow. Everybody found it helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Apurve. Thank you everybody for your time. Have a good day. Good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.